Hi, so I'll be talking about week six and all about the four videos and how we could relate those definitions and terms to all within the all four videos. So the first one is Savage War Crimes, which is on YouTube. And in that video, it is talking about racism, colonialism, and ethnocentrism. These three terms plays a significant role in justifying the atrocities committed during various conflicts. These ideologies often undergo the dehumanization of certain groups where they are not treated properly and making extreme violence again a group which is seen as a low grade group, or there has been some violence in the discrimination which is not even necessary. Or yeah, so first we'll talk about racism regarding that video. Racism is a central way or a specific racial or a specific group that is being portrayed as the bad group, or they are portrayed as inferior, low, they have low status or something like that. This is usually often justified as brutal actions against these groups. And the video discusses the example where the colonial power did violence against indigenous population in Africa and Asia. It is also driven by the belief that population were racially inferior. They were seen as being in a low status, basically. For example, the Atrocides Committee by a European colonizer in the Congo under King Leopold II was very emphasized and it was very highlighted. The Congolese people, the people from Congo, were subjected with high violence, and there was lots of abuses and mass killings. Uh, they were seen as less than a human. They were clearly seen as someone who is not equal to us, not equally uh, a part of this journey. And there comes this racism because only those people face these problems, not even other people. Second, we have colonialism. Colonialism involves the domination, like Europe, like UK, those British, for the biggest example, which even India, many parts of the earth. Personally belong to India, so I know that over a century, British Empire was ruling India, and not only India, but many parts of the world where British Empire was ruling. So that term is called as colonialism. And in this video, it refers the same British colonialization of India with the violence perpetrated against the Indian population. The Jallianwala Bagh massacre in 1919, where British troops fired unarmed civilians. Like, I personally have seen that a documentary movie, I think, where there was a pileup of humans, like we pile up clothes, we pile up many useless things. There were pileups of human bodies, which were uh, so the British government enacted this shoot at sight orders. So whenever they saw civilian near that Jallianwala Bagh, they used to fire them. So this is a part of colonialism. And there were many hundreds and hundreds of people dead during that. It is a really violent, justified act where British had the right to rule and control these uncivilized natives. Then we have ethnocentrism. Ethnocentrism involves judging other culture based on their standards, sorry, and their own culture's value. Often it leads to the belief that the particular culture is inferior, and the person who is believing that their culture is superior. So in this video, we can see that atrocities committed by Japanese military during World War II. The Japanese saw themselves as culturally superior to the Chinese and to other Asian people, which justified their brutal treatment towards civilians. And it was a war during the Nanjing massacre, yeah, where there was mass executions, there were raids, many, many. They were looting the valuable things from houses. This was just to justify that these people are inferior. So that was all about the video one. Then we have video two, which is Tentura, the untold story of 1948 massacre. This was the event surrounding the Tentura massacre. During that Arab-Israel war were explored, and shedding lights on the underlying ideologies. Some of the main aspects during this, I can relate it with the number of theories we have as settler colonialism, imperialism, racialism, and prejudice that contributed some or the other way. So let's talk about settler colonialism. It is a form of colonialism where settlers come to permanently inhabit and establish their own territory, often leading to marginalization of the one which had those territories, which had the power to those territories. So, in the context of Tentura, Jewish settlers sought to establish a homeland in Palestine, which involves many displacement of the existing Palestine civilians. The documentary the documentary reveals how the village of Tentura was targeted as a part of their bombarding strategy by the Jewish state to remove Palestine Arab populations. And the massacre was expulsion of the village's inhabitants and was also a part of larger Nakba, which is catastrophe, where more than 7 lakh Palestinians were displaced to make a way to a new way of Israel, new state of Israel. Then we have a term called imperialism. Particularly, British imperialism played a crucial role in events leading to 1948 Arab-Israel War, and British policies and the Buffalo Declaration in 1970 supported the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine, laying the groundwork for the conflict between Jewish settlers and indigenous Arab population. The documentary highlights how British imperial policies facilitated Jewish immigration and land acquisition in Palestine, often at the expense of Arab population. They created tensions that culminated this war, and during which Tantura massacre occurred. British imperialism was also supported by Zionist movement, which was neglecting the rights of Arab population, contribution to the condition which led to such a huge violence. Then we have prejudice. The prejudice is just about thinking. So, in this context, the massacre in Tantura is depicted as being a deep seated prejudice against Palestine villagers who were viewed as enemies or potential threats simply because of their ethnicity and the land they desired by Jewish settlers. The prejudice justified not only the violence during the massacre, but also there were some subsequent efforts to cover up those areas and erase all the memory of village and its people from history. In a summary, we can say that Tantura massacre was an example of how settler colonialism, imperialism were all into the marginalization and violence. And this document underscores the last-longing impacts of these ideologies on the Palestine people, whose history and rights were systematically undermined in the creation of Israel state. Sorry, and then we have how Britain started Arab and Israel conflict. It is a free documentary. In this documentary, the role colonialism and imperialism by Britain was shaping the conflict between Arab and Palestine in in the past. So this document highlights how British actions and policies set to stage for the enduring conflict driven by the ethnocentric attitudes and in the form of xenocentrism that influenced their decisions. So let's talk about colonialism and imperialism. So in if we talk about colonialism, there is British involved in that. So in this, the British government declared and it supported the establishment of national home for Jewish people in Palestine despite of the presence of Arab population, and by the imperial interest ignored the aspiration and rights of the Arab majority in the region and sow the seeds for future conflict. So in British it saw increasing Jewish immigration and which encouraged the British policies, which led to growing tensions between Arab and Israel. Then the impact on the Arab and Israel conflict was the combination of British colonialism, imperialism, ethnocentrism, and xenocentrism attitudes created an environment in which the Arab population was increasingly uh, it was increasingly discriminated, and the British always prioritized the Zionist objectives driven by both interest and cultural biases, directly contributing to the tension and legitimate uh, grievances that Arab population led to the legacy of mistrust. In a summary, we can say that this document how Britain started this conflict, illustrate how British colonials and imperials practices and underpinned by ethnocentric and xenocentric attitudes, and which played a crucial role in the emergence of Arab-Israel conflict and the preferential treatment of Jewish settlers combined together. Then we have 13th full feature, which is on Netflix. And the 13th is a documentary that delves into the historical and systematic issues of racism, prejudice, and discrimination within American criminal justice system. It also explores how neo-colonialism and cultural imperialism perpetuate racial inequalities in United States today. Racism is a central theme for 13th, which examines that how the US criminal justice system has been used, control, and suppresses the Black Americans from the post-slavery era to the present day. So the film discusses that 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery except as punishment for a crime. This loophole was the criminalization of Black people, particularly in the law where Black codes and later Jim Crow laws which were designed to maintain the racial hierarchy. This documentary shows how mass incarnation became in the new form of slavery, disappropriately targeting the Black Americans through the policies like war on drugs or three strike laws. Uh, if we talk about prejudice or preconceived negative thoughts about Black Americans were at its peak. So in this 13th, it highlights that how media portrayed the Black men as violent and criminals, and in favor of the white men's. And for instance, the documentary discusses the impact of 1994 crime bill, which led to the increase in incarnation rates for non-violent offenses, particularly among Black Americans. So, in conclusion, we can say that racism, prejudice, and discrimination were linked to the systematic issues in American criminal justice system. Thank you.